joining us. Welcome back to the Influencers Journey Show. And today's topic, we are talking about what is influence and how to create it. So I am Taria Hodge, and I'm sitting down with the lovely Suzanne Hart. And so, Suzanne, yeah, let's go ahead and dive into the discussion of what is influence.
It's interesting because, as I said, when someone talked to me and told me I didn't really have it, I was like, well, what do you mean? And my big question was, how do you get it? Is it something you buy? Is it something you do this? And how many of you, when you came in, you said, I'm going to go buy a leads list, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to buy me some influence. I'm going to buy me some people. I'm going to buy me a following. And if you're like most people, it didn't work out so well,
Mhm.
because they were cold, and even colder,
Yeah.
right? And so for me, it began to be this journey of looking at people, and the people who were killing it in my sphere of influence, really
Hmm. Hmm.
had
Hmm.
some really unique skills. And so I began to really look at, they were all the leaders in the organization. They were all the leaders I knew. And most people would say they were natural born leaders. And
Mm.
I would say not necessarily. There was some unique things that they did. So I have come to learn that influence is born of leadership. However, it's born of a certain type of leadership I like to
Mhm.
call transformational leadership. And what it looks like is, these are the people that go first with new ideas.
Mhm.
These are the people that risk casting a vision and putting themselves out there. These are the people, as one of the viewers said, who has the confidence in themselves, the belief in themselves to say, I'm going to try something new. They put new information into the marketplace. They speak their opinion. They can get controversial. But what is really interesting about an influencer is they have a consistent way of being. They're willing to risk it all for what they believe, and they take a stand in the
Yeah.
space. They have visions larger than life usually, and they're willing to look at that vision as if it is real, and really kind of say, come with me, come with me. This is the key thing. They relate to what they believe as it's already done.
Mm. That's good. I want to go back to something that you said that is so true, and something that we see in the marketplace all the time, and even as an entrepreneur, on the journey. One thing that I know I definitely struggled with in the beginning, and that's like you said, is the courage, to put your idea out there. And so I'm just going to share how it showed up for me. So, being on this journey, and being in, the industry of marketing, there's a lot of things that you can do, under the umbrella of marketing.
Mhm.
Lots of strategies that you could implement. Like you said, we're taking a look at, influencers, people that we deem as influencers, in our space. And we see all of these things. And I remember when it first, like, I started to get like the tug, like, no, not quite. I know everyone says to do this, but, you know, does it really work, or is that the way that I want to build, my business? Or even if there's a strategy out there, and this is one of my favorite ones, even though there's a strategy out there, is this the right strategy for me to implement in my business given where I am at the time? And I remember, like, having that, that feeling on the inside, right? And
Mhm.
going like, should I say something, or should I keep it to myself? Like, how do you like go against the grain, right? And a lot of times I didn't want to be seen as the outlier, but it was one of the things that I had to learn in my business. And this is also much part of influence. Like you said, having that courage, to put your idea, or even if you have an opposing view, right? To say, hey, look, I don't agree with that, and be good, with it. So a lot of times, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the social media space because that's the space that I'm in, right? So a lot of times I see that in the marketplace. I see people, because I have these conversations, I see people who would see things or hear things and they stay silent. And it's almost like you're complying, right? But it isn't until you find your voice and you're able to say, like, hey, I have a different way, to get to the goal, or I have a different way of doing that, and being able to stand up, for that idea and fight for that idea. That's what makes, people sticky and attractive and become influential.
One of the things I saw was when, the influencers that I love, they had an idea, a vision, and it was like their North Star. And they were so passionate and excited and certain about that vision that they were speaking about it, dancing about it, letting people know this is happening. And they were the outliers in many ways. And what happened was that after a while, they were so consistent in that belief and in that message that people would be like, that speaks to me too. I've always wanted to do this. And this is the thing. I've never had the courage. I've always wanted to do this, but I didn't know how. I've always wanted to do this, but I didn't want to do it alone. I've always wanted to. And then you start seeing the stickiness.
Yeah.
And as I think of Mr. Malcolm Gladwell, he's the tipping point. There's a point where it tips, right? And that's where it is. So part of it is influence, is you work to that place where things tip and people are like, oh, I'm going to follow you. So and it's about your charisma. It's about your energy. It's about your posture. However, it's about your certainty. And before we go on to the next question, when I was in my journey of discovering influence and really kind of find my own way of being influential, one is are you willing to be yourself? That was a big one. Are you willing to be yourself? And exactly what we're seeing on the screen. The other one is, are you willing to lead by example? Lead by example, be yourself. Are you willing to speak your truth? And are you willing to hold your truth when no one else is in agreement with you?
Yeah.
And so those things, but this is the key thing. The tagline we have, when I wrote it, it was my reminder to myself: know you're brilliant, know you're special, and the world is waiting for what's unique about you. And people who are willing to walk that walk and walk it out will find their tipping point, and influence will happen. You can't do it silently. That's the thing. So, Tria, how do you create influence?
Yeah, the first thing I'm going to say, Suzanne, is you got to show up. And if it's one thing that I learned, and that's why I talk about it all the time, right? You definitely have to show up, because one of the things that we know is that influence doesn't live in silence. Influence doesn't thrive in silence. Influence, doesn't hide out. So it's the saying, what is it that they say is the loudest the loudest squeak gets the most attention, right?
The squeaky wheel gets the
right.
Something along that one.
Yeah, something along that lines. I can't remember it, but that's what it is. It's about, like I said, what we talked about. It's about having that vision, having that idea, having that message, right? And showing up for your message. And you have to be able to share your experiences and the lessons that you've learned. Now, here's another very interesting thing that I learned on the journey. Influence doesn't really mean perfect. And
No.
so I know we have a lot of people out there, because that's what I thought too. I thought, going on this journey, like whenever I showed up, like I have to show up perfect, right? And I only let people see like the perfect scenarios, see things when after I figured out and everything works. No, people really don't connect with that. What people want to know is that they have someone who's on the journey with them. So all the mess ups, all the failures you got down. And then here's the thing. People don't necessarily like hold you to the failures, right? What they're looking for is to see how you get back up.
That
And
is
when
that is so true. Not
right, they
only
want to see how you get back up.
not only how you get back up, but how you deal with what
Right.
happens. What do you do with the failure, and how how
Yes.
do you move from it? It's such a really interesting thing, because influence is built. I used to say it's built in the fall. Right?
Mm.
It's not built in the things you're going wonderful. It's built in those hard moments where your character is being challenged,
Get challenged, tested.
tested. Your character is being knocked about, and the question that I often have to ask myself is, who am I committed to being,
Mm.
and am I willing to walk that out? And the part that I've learned is leadership in the true sense, leading by example in a consistent way with clear values, and holding those values in the hardest of times, and walking it out and talking it out and
Mhm.
standing for what you believe,
Yeah.
is such a rare thing in today's society, that's why you become sticky.
Yeah.
It's not in perfection, as you said. It is
Mhm.
in the journey. And so how it's created, one of the things we teach is we teach storytelling. And one of the reasons we teach storytelling is because it's not where you are that creates influence. It's the journey of transformation. And
Yeah.
people watch the becoming. And they watch the becoming with awe,
Yeah.
however, but also with hope and inspiration. And they go, if she can do it, or he
Yes.
can do it, I can do it. And then they say, I'm following. Be
Yeah.
my example. Show me what to do. Give me the secret ingredient. I'm following you. We gotta, it takes us right into the next question, is ETR. How do you earn the right to be an influencer?
Yeah, and once again, this is such a good question, because it's the difference between theory and application, right? And so one of the things that is required for us, in on the journey as entrepreneurs, business owners, we are required, to increase our knowledge
Mm-hmm.
and learn. Okay. And I could tell you there have been times, Suzanne, when, I've experienced, some, you know, people on the journey, and I'm just like, oh yeah, that sounds good. But I could tell that you haven't done it. Right. And that's what people really want to know. They want to know, like, what's your experience? What's the application? So you talk about this, but have you gone in and done it? And so, like I said, it's always the reminder for me to be transparent on the journey too. So it wasn't until I started to share with people, yeah, man, shoot, I ran some ads that failed, right? Everyone wants to
Showing
talk.
up.
Right.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to talk about that amazing ad campaign that brought them in thousands of dollars, right? But no, I've had some, failed campaigns. I've had failed launches, right? And so it's like when I share those things and I say, hey, this is what I did, this is what worked. This didn't totally work. So I get it. I get what you're going through. I get that feeling, of how disappointed you are, how totally bummed out. I could relate to wanted to quit because I've gone through the experience and gone through the gamut, right? And so those are the things that when we talk about earning the right, that's the thing that makes, your tribe, your people raise their hand and say, like, you know what, you are my person, you get me.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about ETR is it's an interesting process. And anyone who comes into our programs, one of the first things that they'll hear, particularly speaking, is you're going to ETR. You're going to earn the right to take the stage. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
earn the right to deliver this program. You are going to earn the right to call yourself an expert in this area. And part of it for me is that expert is not just knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just having done it. It's a deeper level. And this is where the ETR really comes in. And this is where I believe influence lives. Someone who's been through the hard knocks of the journey
Mm-hmm.
has a different swagger.
Right.
Say.
like you can't tell me nothing.
Someone who has been knocked down, just dragged about, and gets back up is like, honey, I 10 feet foot and bulletproof.
Mm-hmm.
Bring it on.
Yes.
Right? Someone who has been poked fun at, left alone, and told they were nuts, and they come through it. Yeah. There is a way of being that is energetically just like, I got this. Mm-hmm. And those people, when you challenge them about their stuff, they're like, I don't have to answer. Yeah. I'm just gonna let my behavior show, because there's a way, and I don't know the gentleman who said it, but there's a confidence, there's a swagger, there's a way of being that can only occur after the ETR. Those are the people that take the stage and they speak freely because they didn't memorize the talk yesterday. That talk is inside of them. Those are the people who when you watch them, it's a cellular experience, because you look at them and you say, that person knows their stuff. That's where influence lives. And it is elusive because it's sexy, it's attractive, it's magnetic, and it actually occurs with ease. It's not the trying, it's not the I gotta go do it. It is what becomes available to us when we do the work publicly. And there comes a time where you know your stuff, and you ooze a certain amount. And I'm not talking like you ooze ego and whatever. You ooze a certainty.
Yeah, there's a difference,
right?
It's not about it's not, like you said, it's not the ego or the ability to say, like, you got to prove, but like you said, like, I know this stuff, I've lived this stuff, and I could show you some things, right? I could take you through. I know where, and I think that's the biggest thing is that feeling of, I know where you are because I've been there before. Now let me help you get, to the other side. I think that's
and I think that is so true. And I think the piece you said something that tweaked something within me. I think when influence occurs and you're in that space where you're starting to feel it, competition is no longer an issue, and comparison is no longer an issue. I know for myself, when I started sitting in this place where I was doing my work, I was so focused on making Suzanne better that I wasn't paying attention to other people in that comparison way. I was looking at other people from a teaching perspective in terms of what I need to learn from that person who's brilliant. And for me, it was the pursuit of excellence, and the pursuit of Suzanne's best today is going to be better tomorrow. Suzanne's better tomorrow is going to be extraordinary next year. And it was that evolution, because I got preoccupied, absorbed in the process of excellence
Yeah.
and the process of growing myself, and how I showed up when people saw me was different.